On September 10, 2001, one day before the September 11th attacks, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld stood before Pentagon officials and made a statement that was recorded, transcribed, and archived by the Department of Defense. He said that, according to some estimates, the Pentagon could not track $2.3 trillion in transactions. The following day, the announcement was buried under the news of the attacks. Today we document 5 cases where the United States government lost, misplaced, or could not account for trillions of dollars of public money, and the verified public records showing that in none of these cases were criminal charges filed against a senior official. Every figure in this video comes from official U.S. government sources: Congressional Budget Office reports, Government Accountability Office audits, Department of Defense Inspector General findings, and Federal Reserve published data. We cite every source with its official document number. Case 1. The Pentagon's $2.3 trillion announcement, 2001. On September 10, 2001, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld held a press conference at the Pentagon. The transcript, archived on the official Department of Defense website at defense.gov, includes this statement. According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions. The press conference was reported by CBS News on September 10, 2001. The original broadcast is archived at cbsnews.com. The $2.3 trillion figure referred to accounting discrepancies identified by the Defense Finance and Accounting Service. According to a 2000 Inspector General report, DoD IG Report D-2001-79, the Army alone could not properly account for $7.6 trillion in accounting entries between fiscal years 1999 and 2000, though the IG clarified that this represented accounting transaction errors, not necessarily lost cash. The specific office within the Pentagon that was working on tracking the accounting discrepancies, the Naval Command, Control and Ocean Surveillance Center, was destroyed in the September 11th attack on the Pentagon the following morning. The employees working on the financial audit were among those killed, according to casualty records published by the Department of Defense. Case 2. The Federal Reserve's $9 trillion in off-balance sheet transactions, 2010. In May 2010, Federal Reserve official Elizabeth Coleman testified before the House Financial Services Committee, chaired by Representative Alan Grayson. The hearing transcript is publicly available through the House of Representatives archive at congress.gov. During the hearing, Representative Grayson asked Coleman directly, "Can you tell me whether it was Europe, whether it was South America, whether it was the Middle East, Asia? Where was the $9 trillion in off-balance sheet commitments?" Coleman's documented response was, "I don't know. We'll have to look at that." The $9 trillion figure referred to emergency lending facilities, currency swaps, and financial commitments made by the Federal Reserve during and after the 2008 financial crisis. The full scope was partially revealed through an audit mandated by the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010. The audit, conducted by the Government Accountability Office and published in July 2011 as GAO Report GAO 11696, found that the Federal Reserve had provided $16.1 trillion in emergency assistance to financial institutions between 2007 and 2010, a figure larger than U.S. annual GDP. The report is publicly available at gao.gov. Case 3. The missing $2 billion in Hurricane Katrina relief funds, 2005. Following Hurricane Katrina in August 2005, the U.S. government allocated approximately $110 billion in disaster relief. A subsequent audit by the Government Accountability Office, published as GAO Report GAO 06844T in June 2006, found that between $600 million and $1.4 billion in improper payments had been made by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, including payments to fictional addresses, duplicate payments to the same individuals, and payments for hotel rooms that were never occupied. A further 2005 investigation by the House Select Bipartisan Committee to investigate the preparation for and response to Hurricane Katrina, whose report is archived at congress.gov, documented widespread contract fraud, with no-bid contracts awarded without competitive bidding to politically connected firms. Halliburton subsidiary KBR received $500 million in no-bid contracts, documented in committee testimony. The GAO found that FEMA could not document how approximately $2 billion of the relief allocation was spent. Case 4. The $12 billion in cash airlifted to Iraq, 2003 to 2004. Between May 2003 and June 2004, the United States shipped approximately $12 billion in physical cash, shrink-wrapped bundles of $100 bills, to Iraq for reconstruction and operational expenses. This was not covert. The shipments were documented in Federal Reserve records and reported at the time by the Wall Street Journal. A 2005 audit by the Special Inspector General for Iraq Reconstruction, SIGIR, found that approximately $8.8 billion of this cash could not be properly accounted for. The audit report, SIGIR 05025, is publicly available at the SIGIR archive. The cash had been drawn from the Development Fund for Iraq, a United Nations-administered account holding Iraqi oil revenues, and distributed by the Coalition Provisional Authority without adequate accounting controls. Stuart Bowen, the Special Inspector General for Iraq Reconstruction, testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee in 2007 that this represented, in his words, the largest theft of funds in national history. The testimony is archived in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee records. Case 5. The Pentagon's failed financial audits, 2018 to present. In 2018, the Department of Defense underwent its first-ever department-wide financial audit, required by law under the Chief Financial Officers Act of 1990, which mandated auditable financial statements for all major federal agencies. The DoD had failed to comply for 28 years. The 2018 audit, conducted by independent accounting firms including Deloitte, Ernst & Young, and KPMG, resulted in a failed opinion. So did the 2019 audit, the 2020 audit, the 2021 audit, the 2022 audit, and the 2023 audit. 6 consecutive years of failed audits. According to the DoD Inspector General's 2023 audit report, the Department of Defense could not provide adequate documentation to support $3.8 trillion in accounting adjustments. Entries made to force the books to balance rather than represent actual transactions. The report is publicly available at dodig.mil. The Pentagon's annual budget is approximately $858 billion, meaning the unaccounted adjustments exceed 4 years of the department's entire budget. 5 cases. The Pentagon's $2.3 trillion announcement on September 10, 2001. The Federal Reserve's $9 trillion in undisclosed emergency commitments, $2 billion in unaccounted Katrina relief funds, $12 billion in cash airlifted to Iraq with $8.8 billion unaccounted for, and 6 consecutive failed Pentagon audits covering $3.8 trillion in unverifiable accounting adjustments. In each of these cases, the information is documented in public records. Government Accountability Office reports, Inspector General findings, congressional testimony, Federal Reserve audit results. None of this is classified. All of it is available to anyone who requests it or looks at the right government website. The question is not whether these figures are real. They come from the government's own documents. The question is what it means that trillions of dollars can be unaccounted for in official audits, documented in congressional testimony, and reported in major newspapers, without resulting in a single criminal prosecution of a senior official. The answer, documented by public choice economists, including James Buchanan, whose work earned him the Nobel Prize in Economics in 1986, is that government accountability mechanisms depend entirely on the incentive structures of the people who are supposed to enforce them. When the enforcers and the accountable are the same institution, the enforcement tends not to happen. Every document cited in this video is publicly accessible. The GAO reports are at gao.gov. The DoD Inspector General reports are at dodig.mil. The congressional testimony transcripts are at congress.gov. The Federal Reserve audit is at gao.gov under report number GAO 11696. The information was never hidden. It was simply never read. Subscribe to Hidden Wealth Files. The truth is in the documents. Now you know where to look.